A quick reminder of that breaking news from Formula One. Sebastian Vettel has tested positive for COVID. He will miss the Bahrain Grand Prix, which is the opening race of the season. We can head back live to Bahrain now and rejoin our reporter Craig Slater, who has more. Craig.
Yes, I'm with Martin Brundle to get a little reaction to that Sebastian Vettel news. And just before we came on here, I was saying to you, it's almost harder for the drivers now to avoid COVID, that everything has opened up. Do you think that might change F1's attitude to how we can interact with F1 and team personnel?
Without a doubt. I think I know more people who've got COVID right now than at any point in the pandemic, and that includes Formula One drivers. So Ricciardo's just recovering from it. A shock just now that Sebastian Vettel has got COVID-19, won't be racing, replaced by Nico Hulkenberg, as you said. And then, the paddock, no bubbles this year, no masks. That's going to change. I think the teams are going to want us to stay away from their drivers. They're going to want everybody to stay away from their drivers because they can't afford to have them knocked down. If you think you're a championship contender or a race-winning contender, even more so. Or
could they just say, you can carry on and race even with COVID?
Yeah,
that's got to come at some point, hasn't it?
It has, eventually, but, you're going to wade into the middle of your team working extremely closely with 40 or 50 people seat belting you in the car, and there's a certain amount of responsibility here, isn't there? But obviously, when we go home from here, we don't have to fill in a track and trace form, we don't have to wear a mask on the plane, we do what we like, you don't even have to wear a mask on the underground, although I quite fancy doing that. So you're right, the world is sort of opening up. Maybe the F1 paddock on this news will tighten up a bit.
Okay, well here we are for the first race of 2022. Have we yet to put quite a full stop at the end of 2021? We've had Michael Massey leave as race director. We've had a word change in the sporting regulations about unlapping cars. All of them have to unlap, not just any. And yet we have not had this FIA report yet, Martin. Now, you spoke to Stefano Domenicali yesterday, Formula One's president. How does he feel about that? And you're the interface with the fans as well. You know the level of disquiet there has been globally about the fact we haven't had this report, which was begun immediately after the race, deliver its results yet.
Unfortunately, we were in the middle of a transient phase with the FIA, who control the sporting element of Formula One and the policing and refereeing. When we had Jean Todt moving out as president and Ben Sulayem coming in, but in the middle of all of that, we've just lost time. We needed to close this down in January or something with the full public report as to what happened. And probably much more importantly for me, how it can't happen again, that we can confuse and upset fans, we can have such a controversial end to a World Championship, or indeed just a Grand Prix. So, you can't unravel. As I said at the time, that there's no remedy for what happened that night. The results stand, but we do need to move on. And we shouldn't be knocking on the eve of the new season before we're addressing that.
A lot of fans are saying there's a fear, the FIA fear admitting a mistake because it puts an asterisk against Verstappen's championship. Is there that fear within the FIA, do you think?
I think there's fear in the paddock among some people with a vested interest in it, that they don't want it to be seen that a mistake was made, therefore there's any kind of question mark over Verstappen's World Championship. That's inevitably in some quarters, but I suspect it's more about any kind of legal ramifications, and I don't know, so I'm suspecting with Michael Massey or something like that. So, but there have been tiny changes to the regulations. One hasn't been changed yet that I'm surprised about, is the safety car will still come in at the end of the lap following.
That's an admission that wasn't done.
Yeah, I think, yes, I thought exactly. I thought we'd agree, that had been agreed, that we should tighten that up, because the safety car on a wet day at Spa, a very long track, takes too long. It takes too big a bite out of the race.
Okay, just finally then, we've had pre-season testing. Are Mercedes in as lukewarm shape as they seem to be? I mean, what price Lewis Hamilton confounding what he said himself, that they can't win races early on this season?
The Mercedes was definitely harder to drive than the Red Bull or the Ferrari. Of that there is no doubt, and I was out on track, on every corner watching it. There's a fast car underneath that rather svelte bodywork of the Mercedes, And just as we saw with Red Bull on the last day here, one aero package could just solve their issues. The Mercedes was porpoising, bouncing on parts of the track that no other car was bouncing. So once they get to the bottom of that and sort that out, I think they'll be right in the hunt with speed. But we're turning up here unless they've got some magical solution in the last few days, and they might well have, because the rate of change of bodywork and updates is going to be incredible in the first few races. It does look like it should be Red Bull from Ferrari.
Okay, just finally, looking at the windsock, you fly helicopters, or used to. Is it equally as hazardous flying a helicopter and driving an F1 car in conditions like this? I think the wind will abate a little bit before we go running on track.
I think it's going to be windy through Friday. The wonderful thing about helicopters is you can turn them into the wind, wherever the wind is. Unfortunately, with a Formula One car, as adventurous as the drivers like to get with the racetrack, and we know how much that frustrates everybody, making their own track up sometimes, you are going to be headwind, tailwind, and crossing through at high speed through crosswinds. So if it's this windy through the Friday practice sessions, they're going to be hanging on to those cars, which already look quite a bit more difficult to drive than last year.
Okay, well, I think that's good news for the spectator. The harder the cars are to drive, usually the more exciting the action is for Martin Brundle and David Croft to be describing exclusively live on Sky Sports F1 this weekend.
We're looking forward to it, Craig. Thank you very much.